to On My Way to Wealth, the podcast where busy Gen Xers can learn financial tips as they navigate life on their way to wealth. And now, please join your host, Luis Rosa.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of On My Way to Wealth. My name is Louis, and I'm your host. This is episode 46. Thank you all for tuning in. As the year end approaches, I wanted to talk to you guys about a couple of strategies that you should be looking into and considering before the year is out. I know a lot of us usually wait until the new year to start planning for the next year, but there are, in fact, some financial planning, investing, and tax strategies that you should be thinking about now before the year is out that you can use and perhaps get some benefit out of it. So before we get started with number stuff, I want you to take some time out and reflect to see what are you thankful for. I know this year has been a crazy year with the pandemic, election year. It's been very stressful, the stock market, a lot of things combined, people losing jobs, getting sick, etc. I usually like to think of something that I either learned from a situation or something that's just plain out good to shift the focus from the negative to the positive. So think to yourself, what is one thing that you could be thankful for today? You know, maybe you did go through a rough year. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you got sick or a family member. Sometimes there is an experience there that at least plants that seed for something that's beneficial in the future. You know, so maybe you went through something bad and it might have been a wake-up call, you know, and maybe that's the lesson. Like, wow, you know what? I was not ready for that. Maybe I was not ready to lose my job and it was really rough being on unemployment. I'm going to do a better job next time at having a emergency savings, for example, you know, something like that. So try to think of the positive. And I always just like to mention that because, you know, it's very easy to gravitate towards the negative stuff. So let's talk about a couple of different things. One thing I always talk to my clients about is at the end of the year, have there been any life changes that have occurred? One of the things that might impact a lot of the things that you do going forward is, for example, marriage, right? So if you got married, there are things that you need to consider changing, right? Like beneficiaries on your 401k, your life insurances at work, your tax withholding in your paycheck should probably be adjusted if you get married. You know, same thing, did you have a birth in the family, if you have a new child, et cetera. So you want to reconsider some of the things that need to change as a result of a life change. If you have a new child, or maybe you need to start thinking about college savings, for example. Also, the unfortunate event of either death or divorce is going to have some impact. And again, that might be affecting your beneficiaries. You know, if you're divorced, maybe you don't want your old spouse to inherit some money or get your life insurance proceeds, right? Depending on the situation. So it's something to consider. So think about what has changed this year that might then need to adjust something else as a result. Typically, marriage, birth, death, and divorce are the common four. And again, this is not going to be an all-inclusive list, but I'm going to talk about some of the things that I find are the most common that affect people the most. Also, let's talk about Roth IRAs. If you listen to my podcast, you probably realize by now that I'm a big fan of Roth IRAs. A Roth IRA is when you put money that is after tax, so you've already paid taxes on that money, and it gets to grow ultimately tax-free if you follow certain rules. You know, typically you have to hold it for a minimum of 5 years and wait until you're at least age 59 and a half, and all of that contribution plus its investment growth will come back to you in a tax-free manner. So I am typically a big fan of that. So I always tell people, well, think about it. You're almost at the end of the year. It's already December. So you have a really good idea of how much you're going to end up making towards the end of the year. So start thinking about, do I qualify to contribute to a Roth IRA? If I do, the good news is that you still have until the tax filing deadline to contribute towards this year, but at least it lets you start planning now and, you know, look at it like, well, yeah, you know what? I am going to make enough. There are some income limitations. You want to speak to your financial planner or your accountant about that. But if you are, in fact, going to be under that income limit, you might want to consider doing some planning around that so that you have enough money to contribute to a Roth. Another thing you can do with Roth IRA is also do what's called a Roth conversion where you take pre-tax monies that you have saved either in an IRA or maybe a 401k from an old job, and you can convert those funds into a Roth. Now, that creates a taxable event the year of the conversion. So there's something that you definitely want to look into with your financial planner or tax advisor, but it might be a planning opportunity because maybe, let's say, you lost your job for a month or two, or you got sent home on reduced pay, or perhaps you might be in a lower bracket this year when you look at your overall income. It might be a great opportunity to take your old 401k or IRA funds and convert them to an Roth IRA now, because you'll pay less taxes if you'll be in a lower bracket than you would be in the years going forward if you're going to go back to work or go back to your regular pay. So that's something to consider. Just keep in mind that typically when you take money from the account that is pre-tax and put it in a post-tax account, you are going to pay income taxes on the money. So I just want to reiterate, but it's, again, just a planning opportunity. Also, what about 401ks? If you have been lucky enough to still have your job, still making money, even if that meant working from home, and you are in a position where you can save, even max out your 401k, you have the opportunity to look into how close you are to that. And you might be able to withhold more of a contribution from your paycheck if you are in that position to make sure that you max out before the end of the year. All right, so that's another opportunity that you might want to look into. Also, when was the last time that you rebalanced your 401k? A lot of us, unfortunately, just start a job. If you're lucky enough, you start putting money into a 401k right away. And a lot of people just set it and forget it. And one thing that I always do with my clients is, let's take a look at that 401k. This year has been quite the roller coaster, right? With the pandemic beginning at the end, happening at the beginning of the year, stock market took a dive, right? It's been doing good lately, but it's been up and down, right? What has happened to your account? Were you properly allocated? That's one of the things you need to look at. If you're older, you might want to be a bit more conservative. If you're younger, maybe you can take some more risk. So we want to take a look at that. So when was the last time you looked at your 401k, see what you were invested in, and determine whether or not you need to rebalance that account? We recommend typically as financial planners that you at least at a very minimum look at it once a year to rebalance your account. So that's one thing you want to take advantage of before the year is out. You want to figure out, are you being too conservative? And not just look at your 401k, but also all your investments as a whole, because I find sometimes that people tell me that they are conservative, and then when you look at their 401k, they are very highly invested in stocks. And you want to look at your overall portfolio, not just individual accounts, to determine your overall risk profile, et cetera, which is something that you should do with a financial planner. So look at that. When was the last time that I contributed to my 401k? Am I on track to maxing it out? When was the last time that I increased my contribution to the 401k? Did I get a raise? Well, you know what? Maybe I'll give my contributions a raise and do 1% to my 401k extra. You can make that a goal, a challenge for yourself, 1% a year until you max out, something like that, right? Also, speaking of 401ks, other things related to your employer, a lot of us have open enrollment in our jobs sometime towards the end of the year. Some people September, October, some people have seen as late as December. If you are in that situation, well, are you taking advantage of all your employer benefits? It's a great time to review your health insurance, any other benefits that are offered through your employer, like group term life insurance, things like a flexible spending account, an FSA. If you have one, it's usually use it or lose it. So do you have money left over there? Maybe you haven't been able to go out and spend as much money as you normally would have in your doctor's appointments. You don't want to lose that money. So make sure that you buy your prescriptions and maybe schedule a doctor visit, even if it's via telehealth, et cetera. So you make sure that you use that money and don't lose it. If you have not signed up for a flexible spending account and your open enrollment is still open, and you do plan on having some medical expenses next year, it might be a really good idea to sign up for one, because you get to use pre-tax dollars doing so. Maybe you qualify for a health savings account. That's another great benefit that some employers offer. And if you qualify, if you have a high deductible health insurance plan, and it's offered, you might qualify for it. It might be a great tool for you to put some money on a pre-tax basis that you can then use for medical expenses as well. So a lot of those things to consider. Also, think about your investments in general. If you have after-tax brokerage accounts that you invest money, a lot of people like to buy individual stocks here and there. You can take advantage of the fact that some of those might have gone down in value. If you are not going to keep them, well, you can sell them at a loss and then use some of those losses to offset some of the gains you might have had elsewhere. And again, something you want to speak to your tax accountant or your financial planner about to make sure that you take advantage of that. So there's a whole wealth of opportunities that we can take advantage of before the year's out. Don't wait until the new year to start planning for tomorrow. Another thing I always like to bring up is, when was the last time you ran your credit? Right now, you can go to annualcreditreport.com, and I'll put that in the show notes, and you can get a free credit report. The credit scores are not provided. You have the option of purchasing those, but at least you can run your credit report and you can see what's on it. There's a lot of things being going on. A lot of us have had things deferred, like student loans and other debt. You want to make sure those things are being reported right and not acting negatively against you. So go to annualcreditreport.com, follow the prompts, and run your credit report from all three of the credit bureaus: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You want to make sure what's on there is accurate. If it isn't, you have the ability to dispute it. So that's one great thing to do. So it's kind of like a time to reflect and see, there's a lot of things that have gone on. Let me take some time and just do some actual planning and reflecting to make sure that I'm on the right track. Also, what are some opportunities that we might be able to take advantage of? There are lots of things right now that might be able to be taken advantage of that put you in a better situation. The interest rate environment is very low. If you are a saver, you're not too happy with that because you're getting much less interest in your savings accounts than you were before. However, you can take that and use it to your advantage if you have some consumer debt. For example, credit cards. You might be able to get a loan consolidation, debt consolidation loan, refinance your credit cards. You might be able to refinance your car into a lower interest rate or a shorter term. You might be able to refinance your mortgage. That's a big one. Rates are historically low right now. Maybe you have some time to just contact your bank, see what they might offer you. You might take advantage of some opportunities by getting a lower interest rate. You might be able to, say, keep a similar payment than what you have now, but cut a few years off your loan by refinancing from, like, say, a 30-year into a 20-year, or from a 20 to a 15. So you can lower your payments, or you can shorten the term of your loan, or a combination, depending on how you structure it. Student loans. A lot of us have had student loans that were deferred because they were federal student loans. Unless Congress does anything to change that, that's coming due soon. So have you made a plan for resuming to make those student loan payments, which will be back most likely in January? You've probably gotten used to not making those payments since March, but now, unless anything changes with the law, those payments are scheduled to resume. So have you made a plan for that? Did you get your mortgage into forbearance by your lender and gave you a break for a few months not to pay that mortgage payment? When is that going back? Have you made a plan to resume those payments? Also, when I was talking about earlier, like, what have you learned? I wanted to see if you've already taken advantage of something, even just because of the fact that you might be homebound because of the pandemic. I know a lot of clients of mine who thankfully kept the same job, same income, but they're spending way less because they are home and they're not going out. So it's less going out to eat, less going out in general, and they have extra income, and I hope that you are in that situation. If that's the case, well, what's the opportunity there? Am I in a good situation to have a better emergency savings next time? Are you prepared for the next market downturn? How did you feel this time around? So if you do have that extra income, well, let's put it to use. Do you have adequate emergency savings? If you have debt, can we reroute some of those savings and put it towards that debt? And again, in combination with maybe refinancing. taking advantage of lowest interest rates, and also the fact that you have additional income because you're not going out to spend, that's a great opportunity to take advantage of. So these are a lot of the things that I sit down with my clients about and just kind of asking questions like, hey, what changed? Are there any opportunities to take advantage of? There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do before the New Year's hits that you can take advantage of and set yourself up for a much better 2021. So I hope that you find some of these useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. There's any topic in the future that you'd like me to speak on, please send me an email. If there's anybody you'd like me to interview, you want to make an introduction, I'm always open to any new opportunities. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your month. And I'll see you in the next episode next week. Thank you. Thank you for listening to On My Way to Wealth. If you have any questions, please send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. The information provided here is for information and education purposes only. The opinions expressed herein are solely those of myself, unless otherwise specifically cited. Material presented is believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations are made by my firm or myself about other parties' information or accuracy or completeness. All information or ideas provided should be discussed in detail with a financial advisor, accountant, or legal counsel prior to implementation. Thank you.